Live yet? There we are.
Hi, everybody. Happy Friday.
Yes, happy Friday.
Okay, can I just say it is June 14th, which means the month of June is halfway over, and that feels very surreal to me because
Yes.
what? June's like my favorite month of the year. It's not okay that it's moving fast.
Yes, I was making changes to my calendar earlier for July. And it's
Yeah. It's like, what?
Really? We're already there? Okay.
We're there. So hi, everybody. I hope you are all well. I hope you are all having a happy Friday. We're excited to be here. We're both in good moods and good places today. So you're gonna win.
Yes, and glad to be back. I mean, I'm glad that I wasn't replaced by somebody other than your husband, right? It's like that's allowable, but yeah, if you'd have brought somebody else, I would have been really, really hurt.
I know. Well, the options that were going through my head is who's a good substitute. Really, the only one I could count on is in that kind of a desperate situation is Tim Lynch. But friends, listen, if you ever want to pop in like that in case of emergency when one of us is out, like go ahead and drop us an email to theexchange@greenbook.org and let us know, like, hey, I'd be interested in being a substitute. Put me on the substitution list because things happen.
Yep, absolutely. On that note, since you put the email, do we want to acknowledge that apparently it was broken? We didn't know that. So sorry if you did email us. It wasn't getting to us. We did discover that it was broken and now it is fixed. So please do email us.
Yeah. And if you what we're talking about, like, items of interest coming in there, things you want us to cover, things you want us to see, because it might not be on our radar. Lenny and I both curate from a lot of sources. But if there's something that you're like, I really want their eyeballs on front of this new product launch or, interesting industry conversation, like if there are things that you're like, oh, I wish they'd talk about that this week, please go ahead and email us at that email address. Yeah, Karley has shared it there. And I think, the only reason, like I said, we know that it wasn't working was because Tim Lynch emailed it to me on my personal email address and said, are you getting this? And I was like, oh my goodness, no. So the only reason we knew it wasn't working was because somebody said, by the way, I've tried to reach out to you there. So now we know we've apparently solved the problem, and please reach out. We'd love to hear from you.
Yes. And even up to, like, literally we were putting in, at least I put in a article 30 minutes beforehand. So that's not a great practice, but seriously, that's why we do this live, like breaking news up to the minute.
When I'm going to get my water. So I don't recommend you reaching out to us 30 minutes prior.
Yes. All right. On that note, we want to dive in.
Yeah, this was a big week in certain tech circles. Those of you who are in the Apple ecosystem, you might have been paying attention to, the big Apple event this year, and the 2024 WWDC event that they have was all about AI. Like, I think there's an article that we're going to share. And if you, click on the article and read this piece, the company is finally going all in on AI, which is, seems like, well, of course they should. But now when we say all in, they're really going all in. There's an umbrella called Apple Intelligence. So all of this is being worked on there. There's new features for the operating system, and you'll be seeing new features on your phone and new features on your iPad and on your laptop. Like anybody in the Apple ecosystem, you should check out the YouTube video. You talk a minute, Lenny.
Okay, Karen. Yeah, I'm not an Apple user, but it's and it is interesting. It's not just Apple's AI. They're which is unusual for Apple. I think they're collaborating with multiple additional AI providers, OpenAI, et cetera, to integrate in. And across the entire ecosystem, all of the app providers, et cetera. And I think here's what's interesting, not being an Apple user. What this does mean, though, is there will be, we have optimized for mobile research as an industry. So we could reach consumers where they are and the devices that they prefer to use. And this is going to open up a ton of new capabilities that's going to generate a lot of creativity of things that we could do now, because simply the technology allows us to do it in new ways. So, I would predict new way, integrating voice, integrating new ways to do ethnography, video, and analysis of images, and all types of. You had brought up creating emojis.
So there's going to be AI-powered emoji creators. So based on what somebody types, the sentiment of what they're typing, AI might create an emoji just for you. Just think through that. The idea of, remember, like maybe you don't know, a couple of years ago, we were all about like, even doing emoji research. Like, what can we use emojis instead of options in surveys? Like, can we try to capture some human thinking with these, cute little, miniature visuals?
Hmm.
And they can create new ones based on sentiment. I love this concept. I can't wait to see that roll out. I mean, there's a lot of functionality. Voice memo, which is a feature of on your iPhone, is voice memos. They're going to add transcription to that. That's like, to me, that should have been happening. I recently checked voice memos and I'm like, really? I have to load this into something else. So it was a big surprise that they didn't already have transcription. So that'll be in there. There's going to be some AI assisting for photo editing. There's going to be, AI generated notifications, summarization, email wrangling. Like there's going to be a lot, or mail and, mail wrangling, not Gmail or email, but they're the mail app. Messages, you're going to have like more auto replies for your messages, which has started, but now that's going to be, a little bit more integrated. So yeah, there's a lot to check out with some of these new features, but the implications for research are just going to mean, accessibility research, like for research, like all of that effort that everybody put into great mobile platforms for your research could potentially just be, really enhanced with some of these add-ons. So
Absolutely. And I think especially the qualitative, the scale, right? The emoji thing of the semiotics and there's so many interesting possibilities this opens the door for. So audience, be prepared for new innovation with existing suppliers, not just the new. There'll be new suppliers that emerge from here, I promise you.
And I mean, if you are a supplier, you need to be like taking in those sorts of announcements, the ones that Lenny and I are sharing with you, but this one in particular, and being like, okay, what does this mean for our platform? What can and should we be investing in from a development standpoint to build on some of this? Because it will start to become table stakes. Like I said, voice memos didn't have transcription and it already was bothering me.
Right.
These things, once they become everyday life for iPhone users, a survey taker will start to expect that level of quality.
Right. And it will go into Samsung as well, right? I mean, it's the arms race. So it's unusual for Apple to kind of lead the charge, but it's just interesting times. And I don't know if the horse is around, but we've spent a lot of time already thinking about analysis, and everybody's kind of gotten that point now where everybody has some AI flavor in there we go in their analysis. But there's all new things coming, right, that affect form factor and open up the door to new methodologies and to drive new value, new ways to engage. And it's not enough to say, oh, we have AI transcription.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
I'm sorry.
I was like, that's not. I'm like, okay, it's about
that's so 6 months ago, right? And I don't mean it to sound dismissive. Just recognize that the pace of this technological innovation is so fast that we need to think through that and experiment. And anyway, I think we beat that horse enough. So
the horse is here. I should not have had the horse so far away, but I think I might have told you I was having to keep the horse away from Maggie, who was finding creative ways to get it off my desk. So I had to anyway. Maggie's my golden retriever friend, so Maggie really would like to just
that dead horse, make it really dead.
Anyway, no, actually, Maggie might show the horse a lot of love, but that's not what we're here to talk about. I really do want to talk about this this new product alert. Or I guess it was, alert everybody. There is a new product launch that, I'm not in the Copilot ecosystem. We're not in Microsoft here at Greenbook. Although I know you are, Lenny, more embedded in that. I certainly know Tim is my husband and much of the business world, but it's called Invisibility. And it is an interface that allows you to kind of work amongst all of the LLMs instead of having to be like, I'll use Claude for this, or I'll use ChatGPT for this, or whatever. Like, it's all integrated in there. And I was like, that is a win. Like, for me right now, sometimes I choose, I'll use Claude for this, or I'll use ChatGPT for this. Like, I'm choosing. Yep. And I might have my implicit reasons right now, which, aren't really articulated, but the idea of of me not having to do that juggling is actually really interesting. So I love this particular app. What else can you tell
Yeah.
us?
No, I think that's it. You saw me looking around because I was trying to remember. I actually downloaded something similar for Chrome, and I can't remember the name of it, but it's the similar concept of integrating
Yeah.
all of the various LLMs into one interface, and I think that's it's like the application of the LLMs. So I think that's interesting.
Yeah.
We'll see more and more of that deployed across all of our devices, so we won't have to pick just one. So, some things do certain things better than others.
Yeah. Now that one is super cool. I was like, oh man, and also for those of you who are still grappling with this, when you click on the website for this particular site, which I know Karley shared, it's all via Product Hunt. But when you see how many LLMs there are, branded LLMs there are, you start to realize how small your world using this technology really is.
Right.
It's like if you're like me and you're like, I use ChatGPT or I use Claude. Like that's my short list, right? Yes, like maybe occasionally I pop into one of the other platforms, but they're not even on my active memory in my brain about which ones to go to, right? So the fact that there are so many, I think just shows us that even those of us who are tracking this have limited knowledge of all that's out there. So that's the other thing I liked about this is broadening your knowledge of what exists.
Yeah. And the one that I was thinking about that you saw me craning my head, it's called maxai.me. Karley, I just sent you the link if you want to pop it into out there for everybody else. Same concept where invisibility is for Mac. This is for Chrome.
Yeah, it's good stuff. So, here we are talking about AI innovations, but there were a few announcements this week that I want to talk about because they are brand usage of AI. And, Lenny and I've talked a lot about, that brands are kind of following and relying on partners for this. At least they have been. But I wonder if we're at a tipping point because this week, there were kind of two big things going on. One in the world of Clorox, one in the world of U.S. banks. So Clorox, there was a release that Clorox is accelerating their innovation process with Gen I investment, right? So they are using it in their innovation process it's a huge investment, developing, here's a quote, hundreds of digital prototypes at a time, testing them with millions of consumers instead of just 20 in a room as in the past. So that's interesting. So they are putting this out there to use AI to test with millions in their innovation pipeline. I just thought super cool to hear that Clorox is doing that.
Absolutely. I mean, it's really interesting, right? And now what does that look like when you get to iterative, very agile, very iterative, early stage concept testing, and then move into, okay, now we're going to boil it down and we get to optimization and, and we've seen that with advertising already. And now we're seeing it with product concepts. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah. There is spoiler alert, y'all. I interviewed Nick Graham who's now at Mondelez, former Pepsi, now at Mondelez, for the Green Book podcast. Episode won't air for a couple of weeks, but I interviewed him yesterday and we talked about what Mondelez is doing, how his team is using AI and some of the really neat stuff they're doing when it comes to innovation that was almost along the lines of the AI, the models being trained to facilitate ideation, which was a fascinating facet of that conversation. So I can't wait till that gets out there and you all can hear it too. But Mondelez is certainly exploring all their use cases as well now. Like it seems like, again, we have now tipped and brands are all in. The article that we were linking to, had a few other links within that article. You can find them, but Coca-Cola is investing $1.1 billion in the technology through a partnership with Microsoft. L'Oreal has some R&D initiatives going on with AI for their personalization and their kind of innovation space within the beauty category. Adore Me, which is owned by Victoria's Secret, they are allowing customers, again, to kind of design their own, their own sets, lingerie sets. So like these companies are going all in now and it's really exciting. I don't know. I just think it's exciting.
It is, and interesting. So I will share. It made this is almost a horse thing, maybe. Somebody, CEO of a sample company, was traveling and talking to their peers, and he said no one was talking about this. They were all just talking about just sample quality, which that's great. That's if you're a sample company, you need to be talking about sample quality. But I think it goes to some of the other data we've seen recently that there's still a lot of folks that are not paying attention to this. And I just got to say you're wrong. It's a bad business decision if you are not.
I mean, full disclosure to everybody listening, you know, we have like 4 bullets on data quality and integrity to cover before that. You know, maybe we jump to those after we talk about this U.S. bank thing. But, you know, we are not, you know, minimizing the importance of data quality and integrity. We know it is also an important issue, but it's not one or the other right now. We need to talk about both.
Right. Because, you know, brands are doing it for themselves, right? I mean, they're driving innovation themselves.
And so like, I think you found this U.S. bank article. That's one I didn't click up, but it has to do with avatars.
How AI avatars, machine learning significantly reduce development times for new marketing campaigns. Right. I mean, it's the idea that they're using some type of synthetic sample. That's what when you hear that word avatar, that's what they're doing. They've created personas. Those personas are off of existing data, and they're utilizing those to test new concepts and embedded within the marketing. And there's a lot of platforms out there on the marketing side that are doing exactly that and incorporating, you know, non-conscious measurement, kind of psychographic profiles, et cetera. Let's interesting.
Jump ahead to because it's all related. Karley, it's the very last thing on the brief, just because Karley's paying attention. This is on that Evidenza.
AI.
Like, let's talk about that, because I know we were going to maybe talk about it later. It was the last thing. This is the thing that Lenny shared with me at 11:30, friends. So
it was. But I was on a call with somebody at the ANA conference in Florida, and these guys came out of stealth there and presented. And it's driven by the former head of B2B or at LinkedIn, something of that nature. I'm sorry if we're not getting that totally accurate, but you know, basically it is synthetic sample. We survey AI copies of your customers to build finance-friendly sales and marketing plans in minutes, not months. It is based on synthetic sample personas based upon your existing customer base, right? It's trained off of that. They presented, and my understanding was that E&Y said that they were doing A/B testing side by side, real surveys versus Evidenza, 95%. Right? It was. We just need to recognize that, and it gets into the sample quality conversation as well, against the importance of good sample to inform these things. It's not just primary research; it's now these new platforms.
We are building synthetic sample. We certainly want to make sure we're building it based on quality. That's an excellent point.
Yes.
Well, I also like semantically, by the way, I like that, like, we know what they're talking about as synthetic data, but I like that they're like, we survey AI copies, like the AI copies of your customers. And I sat with that for a while when I looked at this, and I thought, like, AI copies of your customers makes it sound real, right? It makes it sound like we just cloned your people, which is interesting on some level, right? It's a different semantic way to wrangle and understand what synthetic is, which seems fake. So anyway, encourage anybody who's in this space to really maybe do some research about the language that works and what these things mean to people right now, because synthetic might mean fake.
Right.
Copies of your customers might imply a little closer to real. I don't know.
Right. And look at the different business use case. These guys, they are not selling to market research organizations.
Yeah.
Excuse me. They are selling to marketers.
Right.
And the business use case is to skip over primary research in these specific use cases, to say we already have the data. We don't need to ask new questions. We can do this with these digital avatars based on all the existing information we know about your customers. Not going to be appropriate for every use case. There's still got to be a validation phase, you know, all of those things, but they are proving that it can be pretty darn effective
Yeah.
under the right conditions. So
Yeah.
anybody who dismisses this, oh, that's all BS. I would not recommend utilize synthetic sample if you don't know the answer or don't know much about your consumer,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Then it's not going to be appropriate.
Right.
But if you have detailed information about your consumer and you want to test a hypothesis with that population with known data, then why the hell would you not?
Yeah. Yeah. It's a classic example of, kind of garbage in, garbage out, which I think is what you said before in the show. Like, if you want to go down this path, make sure what's going in is, really good, unbiased, data with integrity, so that what you get out isn't the opposite. Right.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah. But let's stay with data quality, because there were a lot of things that came up this week in the world of data quality and integrity. We can bop back up to the other things, Lenny, just for process wise with you and I. But I didn't read. Oh. We just got a comment. I want to shout out Matt Valley. This is easily the most insightful analysis I've heard synthetic sample. Light bulb.
Well, thank you, Matt. We appreciate that.
Thank you. Yeah, really do appreciate. Oh, look at you, Karley. What? I love
Karley, you rock. So that's awesome.
I love that. Thank you.
Yes.
By the way, we really like what we do, don't we? It's just so fun. We have fun. Yeah. Anyway, thank you, Matt. I'm glad it's all good stuff. So tell me about Synth and Conjointly. This is one, admittedly, I didn't get to. This was like the last press release I didn't get to this morning, because I then got distracted by Evidenza. So what do you know about this partnership?
Not that much, actually. So when I first saw the headline, my thought was, Conjointly, they've actually pushed back a synthetic sample, those type of things. They Conjointly is out of Australia. They built a platform really for kind of conjoint. It does a lot more than that, but it was designed as a platform to facilitate very high-end complex research. They've expanded. They've integrated with Synth. And it's positioned as a data quality play, particularly around ghost sample. They don't call this out, so I'm going to guess. And if anybody from Synth or Conjointly is listening, please tell me if I'm wrong. My guess is that they are going to integrate some elements of some of the tests that Conjointly has designed as a way, basically almost as a red herring, or as a new indicator within the sample that it's a real person. That's my guess. And that goes along with, some other solutions we've seen where we're taking like the next one around the integrating facial coding and or implicit measurement, and utilizing those as a way to identify this is a real person. So I think we're seeing some interesting cross-pollination occur there. And this is vital for a company like Synth, for any of the marketplaces. They have probably taken the worst hits on the quality argument to find really innovative new ways to build that in, to ensure that we are getting we're getting real people, highest quality respondents flowing through the pipes into platforms like Conjointly or anybody else.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned this next article. The headline is one that grabs you, right? So it's about consumer data fraud impacting $1 trillion in business decisions. I mean, I had to look at the T for a while and say, like, what T? And then I'm like, oh, this is what we're talking about. We're talking about this level, right? We're not talking millions, billions. We're talking trillions.
Right.
In business decisions being impacted with potentially fraudulent data. It is unacceptable. When you look at it that way, it's like, that is unacceptable. Right. So then I went down this rabbit hole, and I don't know if you had seen this in there in this article. Karley just shared the link, of course, but I jumped from page to page. I'm like, there's this quality pledge, right, that Realized has put out there, and I'm seeing these names on it: Kantar, Sago, Qualtrics, Valence, Rep Data, Force, and Detect, Bounce. I'm sitting there thinking, like, these are a lot of our people in our community, a lot of our customers and partners, and I was really excited to see that they are all committing to this challenge. I was like, I really would like to see even more on here on their behalf, right? But then I also saw Flowers Foods, and I thought, now
shout out to Andy.
Right? Yep. I know. Anyway, I have a fun story about that I'm not going to waste our time with. But anyway, I thought that was really interesting because they're they're first and foremost on there, probably, not even known to everybody. But the reality is that is a brand taking the quality pledge. Remember, Lenny and I have talked about, last year brands were relying on their partners to shore up data quality, and this year some of those great results were showing us that they're like, yeah, you know what? If you're not doing it, we are. So anyway, I just think it's an indicator of that trend of brands taking this so seriously. So listen up.
Absolutely. Well, and it goes back to the previous conversation, right? What's another solution? So we looked at within Grid, it said look for alternative data sources. And you think that's primary research.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? It's not just primary research. It is also leveraging AI to synthesize existing information and create personas so you don't conduct primary research at all.
Yeah.
It's about the quality of the data that informs the decision.
Yeah.
And so that's another permutation of brands doing this themselves. Andy, shout out to Andy and Flower Foods. They're also part of CASE, the CASE for Quality. That's a bunch of brands that have been driving this for years, driving the conversation. So yeah, we're seeing lots of interesting stuff there. And that's great. And then I guess last on that, being aware of the time, our friends in Canada at CRIC released the Guide to Data Quality and Online Research. I think this is a adjacent to the kind of the larger quality initiative going on with SMR and Insight Association and MRS, where they're all kind of tag teaming to do that. But it's great. They're exploring, at least putting information out, and here's the things that we need to look for and helping to drive the conversation. And because again, if the other flip side of this is, it's not just a research project. It's also now the data can contaminate an entire ecosystem of data that can have really significant consequences downstream from just the project.
Right. And what I like about this report is there's some very much like evergreen information. I mean, there's a glossary. I love a good report that starts with a glossary, right? It's like the nerd in me is just like, I love that they're level setting with definitions, because there's a lot of people who might be newer to taking in the concept of data quality. I mean, we know those of you who are like in it, right? But there are some that might be like, I should start to pay attention. Maybe I haven't yet. I like when we have a foundational document. So that's how I viewed this report. I was like, this is actually quite foundational. So a good starting point for anybody who's starting to really roll up their sleeves saying, okay, it's time.
Yep, absolutely. I think we can squeeze in these last two interesting reads.
I think so too, Lenny.
Well, all right. So let's do it.
All right. So yeah, they're cool, right? So when we say interesting reads, these are literally like almost like editorial pieces. They're things that you can read if you want to deep dive into these topics. Both AI related, big surprise. But this first one, AI is transforming the nature of the firm, is kind of the net takeaway there. And it is all about how AI platforms are really changing corporate structures, changing interactions, changing I'm sure teamwork. And anyway, it's just a really interesting piece for those of you who want to think higher level about what it means for the organization, the firm, taking in all these AI challenges. And anyway, there's a pretty cool quote that I don't mind sharing. When the world gets confusing, say, for example, AI remaking the entire technology landscape, these frameworks can inform the choices you need to make. The better you know these theories, the more instinctual their lessons become, the more prepared your intellect is. The faster you'll be able to react to new opportunities in front of you. And when change is happening fast, like it is right now, speed is one of the biggest advantages. The reason I shared that quote and why I liked it when I read this article is, what we are trying to do is we have all this disruption and chaos in our brains, but if we can, strengthen our intellect around this topic, which is what Lenny and I really try to do with y'all, strengthen our intellect, then it will start to feel more instinctive to make the decisions around this technology, which is the goal. We know so much of leadership and decision-making is instinct. And when you're disrupted, you can't do that as easily. So this is a great article to read if that is something that you need a big aha for, right? Like just strengthen your muscle on all these conversations around AI and changing technology, because it will be easier for you to adapt if you have more knowledge.
Yes. And so we can succeed and deliver more value to our customers, have, It's all, it all feeds into that.
Yeah.
And that, so I thought that was interesting to have that article on how it's changing the nature of the firm, organizational structure, et cetera, to this next one.
Yeah.
That white collar jobs are back.
Yeah.
Because we all thought that there would be a decline in those things from AI, and that may still happen, but the data does not seem to indicate that. And I'll read a quote. So
Yeah.
the market angst remains high as the fog around the economy's direction fails to dissipate. We note, however, that it's precisely that condition which presently defines the current state of the economy. Everything is positive but muted. Growth, jobs, wages, business, consumer spending, inflation, sentiment, etc., all of which points to massive inertia in favor of the status quo. So, that's, we may not see this big disruption. I did last little shout out if anybody saw old Elon this week talking about the Optima robot. I mean, that's certainly his plan is for our robot overlords are going to be released in the next 2 years. Although those still seem to be kind of, I hate the term blue collar, white collar, but more production oriented tasks, physical tasks versus intellectual tasks. So, AI may not be here to take our jobs for those of us that work in kind of this category of things.
We must adapt. We must adapt.
But we must adapt one way or the other.
And the new professionals will be, will be able to adapt, and therefore, going back to the previous one, grow your intellect so you can be one of the adapters.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So
we're
not going to be left high and dry.
No, sir.
No. And we hope that you guys are, I love how you said that, Karen. Thank you. That why our goal, why we harp on these things. We're trying to help, even though you may get tired of hearing us beating the horse. Right.
I think maybe they're not tired of us. Maybe they keep showing up, right? So.
Hopefully, oh yeah. By the way, let's give a shout out real quick. Karley, the brilliant and amazing Karley, last week took it on her own initiative, as far as I know, to start this newsletter, which is the summary of the exchange. We had a bajillion people sign up in a week. It was crazy.
It hasn't even been a week, and I think the first day, 1,000 people signed up in the first day, and she killed it. So there will be now there'll be posts on LinkedIn and follow up. But now there's a LinkedIn newsletter that will capture the essence of every episode. So shout out to you, Karley. Good job.
Yes, and thank you for those who signed up. So we appreciate it. I guess you do find value in our ramblings every week.
Yeah. Thank you, everybody. We will see you next time.
Yep. Bye, everybody. Take care.
Have a great weekend.
Yep. Bye-bye.